Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something I think we all wrestle with in this digital age. Autocorrect
Oh,
fails.
yeah, definitely.
You've shared some, well, truly eyebrow-raising examples of how these little digital helpers can go horribly, sometimes hilariously wrong.
Mm,
And our mission today is really to understand what's going on beneath the surface,
mm.
with these tech hiccups.
Right. We'll try and break down the different kinds of mishaps, maybe get a better sense of why they even happen in the first place.
Exactly. And maybe even give you some practical strategies for navigating the aftermath when it does happen.
It's pretty fascinating, isn't it, how this seemingly small feature is just such a pervasive part of how we talk now?
Totally.
And like your example show, it's a surprisingly potent source of both, well, amusement and frustration.
That split-second decision by the algorithm, boom, turns a totally innocent message into something completely off the wall.
Yeah, we've seen all sorts, haven't we? Like that casual mention of ducking someone, suddenly it's a chat about waterfowl with your boss.
Or, or the classic meetup at the pubic library instead of public, that paints a very different picture.
It really does. And who hasn't had that weird attachment issue, like the hug file that was meant to be a PDF?
Oh.
Just where does that come from?
Exactly. It's that unpredictable leap, from what we type to what our devices think we meant. That's what we're going to explore.
Okay.
So, by the end of this, you'll not only hopefully appreciate the humor, but also have a clearer framework for understanding why they occur.
And maybe some tactics for when your phone decides to get a bit too creative with your words.
Right. So let's dive into what we're calling the three distinct levels of autocorrect chaos.
Okay, yeah, this tiered approach, it kind of helps us appreciate the different degrees of impact these errors can have.
Makes sense.
So at the first level, we've got the innocent fails. These are the typos that, generally get a chuckle, maybe a slight cringe,
Right.
but they don't carry any real sting, usually.
Like the classic "let's meet up" becoming
Ah.
"let's meet up." It's a minor slip, unless you're actually planning a carnivorous encounter.
Haha, right. It's easily figured out, maybe even a little funny.
And even the simple "thanks a latte," okay, a bit cheesy,
Mhm.
slightly diluted by the coffee typo, but harmless.
Exactly. Harmless. But then moving up the scale, we hit the awkward fails.
Okay.
These are the ones that can introduce a bit of discomfort. The recipient might pause, reread it, maybe raise an internal eyebrow, you
This
know?
is where the potential for misinterpretation really starts to climb, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like that example, "I'll come soon,"
Mm-hmm.
turning into "I'll be soon."
Yeah.
Now, depending on the context,
Oh, absolutely.
that shift in verb,
Mhm.
it can create a completely unintended, possibly kind of concerning implication.
It's such a subtle language change, but yeah, potentially big social consequences.
Yeah.
Context is just crucial there, isn't it? That same typo, different conversation, totally fine, wrong situation, definitely awkward.
Yep. And then at the far end of the spectrum,
Okay.
the career-ending fails. These are the autocorrect catastrophes, the big one.
Right, the high stakes digital stumbles.
Right.
Like the
Yeah.
example, great execution,
Yeah.
becoming great executive.
Yeah, that one has a darkly comedic edge, doesn't it?
Totally. You can almost picture the recipient thinking, wait, did I just get CC'd on a hitman's message?
Haha. The ambiguity is just ripe for misinterpretation.
Yeah.
Serious misinterpretation.
And to really drive home the real world impact, we got a story from a listener at Autocorrect Victim.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it highlights the potential for social meltdown. They texted, can't wait to lick you instead of see you.
Oof. Lick you instead of see you.
Yeah, result, immediately blocked.
Wow. Okay. That's a stark reminder, isn't it? How a tiny digital slip can have pretty lasting offline consequences.
Seriously, turns a casual message into a social landmine just like that.
Yeah.
So when we find ourselves staring at one of these textual curveballs,
Yep.
what can we actually do? What are some ways to recover? You've outlined some interesting strategies. Yeah, I mean, having a few mental tools for damage control is probably smart. One common one is the oops tech glitch defense.
Right.
A quick ducking autocorrect often works because, let's face it, most people have been there. It's relatable.
Yeah, that shared annoyance with technology, it can diffuse things. You said maybe 50% of the time.
About that, yeah. It depends. Then there's the more audacious move, the own it power move.
Okay, tell me more.
This means, in certain situations, just leaning into the error with humor, like the pubic library example,
Right.
responding with, yes, I meant public library. It's very exclusive. It's bold.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that is bold.
Yeah.
If it lands, though, it could actually turn an awkward moment into something pretty funny, even memorable.
Totally. It's definitely higher risk, higher reward. You got to read the room, so to speak, know your audience.
For sure.
And then there's the misdirection. We called it chaotic neutral.
Chaotic neutral, I like it.
This is basically ignoring the error completely and just immediately pivoting. Anyway, about that report.
Just plow ahead.
Yeah, just plow ahead. The hope is they either didn't notice or they'll just decide to overlook the weird phrasing.
It's like the digital equivalent of subtly changing the subject face to face, right?
Pretty much. It's a gamble, but hey, sometimes it might work if the error isn't too, glaringly awful.
Okay. And on the prevention side, you had a crucial piece of advice.
Ah, yes. A preventative measure could save considerable embarrassment. Engage the brain before the thumbs,
Always good advice.
especially when, shall we say, alcohol might be involved. Specifically, maybe consider turning off predictive text before attempting to type any variation of I love you after a few drinks.
Okay, noted. Trust the sober you on that one.
Please, trust the soaker you.
Wise words indeed. Now, what's really interesting, too, is how these mishaps aren't just random. They can actually reflect cultural differences in how we use language.
That's so true. What an algorithm thinks is a correction can vary massively depending on regional dialects, informal slang.
Right.
Like in American English, you might say, shoot me an email, right? Casual.
Yeah, I say that.
But autocorrect often corrects it to the more formal, send me an email. It kind of strips away the casualness.
Yeah, it loses something. And in British English, the classic is pants changing to trousers.
Right. Unless, of course, you actually meant to talk about underwear, in which case the autocorrect has totally flipped the meaning.
It really shows how these systems are often trained on, one specific linguistic standard, and they just miss the nuances of how people actually talk in different places.
Exactly. And that Australian example, I'll be there, with that implied breathe.
Yeah.
It shows autocorrect trying to maybe standardize even common conversational phrases, and it loses the natural flow.
It's almost like our phones are trying to impose this single kind of bland version of English on us all.
Kind of feels like it sometimes. But thankfully, our listeners are pretty inventive. We got a clever listener hack to share.
Ooh, good. Let's hear it.
Yeah, this one's from @abbreviation_queen. She wisely suggests using TMR for tomorrow.
To avoid the dreaded.
The tomato substitution.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's simple, but kind of ingenious, right? A way to outsmart the autocorrect gremlins on a word you use all the time.
That is brilliant. A small act of rebellion against the tyranny of the typo. I love it.
Me too.
Okay, so now we want to enlist your help, our listener. We've got an autocorrect spy challenge for you this week.
All right. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. It's got 3 parts.
Lay it on us.
First, be on the lookout. Spot a suspicious autocorrect. Maybe in your own texts, maybe your friends with permission, obviously.
Okay, like what?
Well, a potential example. You type, gonna hit the gym. Does it try to change it to the slightly more ominous, gonna hit them?
Oh, right. Who are them?
Exactly. So spot the potential fail. Second task. If you sense one coming, send a preemptive clarification.
Get ahead of it.
Yeah, if you just feel your phone's going to mess it up, send a quick follow-up. FYI, my phone is acting weird today or something.
Yeah.
Set the stage.
Okay, got it. Part 3.
Part 3, just for fun. Create a humorous fake autocorrect fail.
Ooh, fake fail.
Yeah. Screenshot a potential but ultimately untrue mishap, like, nice to meet you, something funny. Share it with a hashtag not my fault.
Nice. Let's see your most creative near misses. Hashtag not my fault. I like it.
Should be fun to see what people come up with.
Definitely looking forward to seeing those. And, just to really hammer home the potential stakes here, let's look at one final kind of high-impact example.
Right. This scenario, it really shows how a tiny typo can have pretty big, maybe even comical consequences. Imagine texting, bring wine.
Okay, standard request.
And it autocorrects to bring wife.
Oh, no.
The mental image, right. The ensuing surprise and the joke, hashtag typo lawsuit. It just really underscores the potential for major miscommunication from one tiny error.
Wow, yeah. It just goes to show these aren't always just silly little mistakes. They can sometimes lead to genuinely memorable, if potentially awkward situations.
Absolutely.
So, okay, let's bring our deep dive into the wild world of autocorrect to a close.
Indeed. So hopefully you now have a bit of a better handle on the various ways autocorrect can go wrong.
Right. From those minor digital embarrassments to,
To instances with, well, more significant implications. And hopefully you've also picked up some practical strategies for navigating these hiccups.
and maybe even preventing a few in the future.
That's the goal.
Okay, and on that note, here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over. Given how deeply embedded autocorrect is now, like in our daily communication,
Hmm.
how might it be subtly influencing the way we actually think about language and use language? And maybe even our relationships, perhaps in ways we haven't fully appreciated yet.
That's a really interesting question. Definitely something to ponder.